Mega Man. What games do instantly come to mind if you hear that name? Probably games like Mega Man 2 or Mega Man X. When people talk about the best Mega Man games, the Zero series is never really brought into the conversation. But why? Is it bad? Are all the other games just better? Or could it be that most people just didn't play the games? Well, today I'm going to analyze the first Mega Man Zero game and see how it holds up to the rest of the franchise. Before I start though, I want to address the format my reviews are going to have. I'm splitting the review into multiple parts, and I will link the timestamp for each part in the description of the video. These are the parts I'm going to split the review into. First off, the story. Secondly, the gameplay. Then the sound design, then the level design, then the bosses, then the final stage and boss, and lastly the conclusion. So you see that these reviews are going to be a little bit longer than usual. That is thanks to two YouTube channels I started watching recently. Metropolis Zone and Jay's Reviews do amazing reviews of the Mega Man X series and inspired me to review the Zero series. If you like great reviews, subscribe to them. Now without further ado, let's jump into the review. This game follows the events of Zero's ending in Mega Man X6, in which he goes into stasis after defeating Sigma, thus creating a timeline divergence. There is a timeline in which Zero didn't go into stasis, which leads to X7, X8 and Command Mission, while the stasis timeline leads into the Zero series. After being in stasis for 100 years, Zero is discovered by the human scientist Ciel, who awakens him on the spot because she's being attacked by Neo-Arcadian forces. Even though he is suffering from memory loss, he helps Ciel and follows her into the Resistance base. In the course of the game, after completing several missions and destroying the remaining Neo-Arcadian forces, Zero learns about what happened during his century-long absence. After the Maverick War in the X series, which ended with the complete destruction of all Mavericks, humanity was able to live in peace in Neo-Arcadia. However, that peace did not last long, since after a while Neo-Arcadia suffered from an energy shortage, thus leading to countless of innocent Reploids being killed to reduce energy consumption. These events lead to Ciel banding with the Reploids and creating the Resistance base. After a while it is revealed that a copy of Mega Man X, Zero's best buddy from a century ago, is responsible for this massacre and being the leader of Neo-Arcadia. After Zero defeats Copy X's 4 right-hand guardians, he faces off with Copy X himself. After beating him, Copy X throws a tantrum and destroys himself, with Zero barely escaping. Heavily damaged, Zero wakes up in the desert with the real X telling him that Zero needs to fight to protect what's left. Zero accepts and ends the game by being a badass and slashing a Neo-Arcadian troop into 2 pieces. In this game you don't only have your Z-Saber, you also have the Z-Buster and the Rod Thing and the Shield Boomerang. But to be honest, I only really use the Saber and the Buster. In most of the playthroughs I don't even bother getting the Rod and the Shield Boomerang. In this game you can use 2 weapons at the same time, a main weapon and a sub-weapon. The main weapon is mapped to the B button, while the sub-weapon is initially set on the B plus R button, but you can change that to either using the sub-weapon by just using the R button, or even switching between the main and sub-weapon with the press of the R button. In all honesty, the second option is the best in my opinion, since you can use both weapons on the fly without having to switch or do anything else that feels weird to do. The dash is mapped on the R button, which is the perfect button to put it on. All in all, this game controls perfectly. The mapping of the buttons doesn't feel weird at all and allows for high precision and speedy platforming, all the while slashing enemies into pieces. Also, other than in the X games, Zero can charge up his attacks, which obviously leads to more powerful attacks. Of course, you can still perform your Saber combos, but in this game you can get 3 different elemental chips which do, as the name suggests, elemental damage to bosses and enemies. But only if you attack them with a fully charged attack from any available weapon. However, that full charge is not available for any weapon from the get-go, since this game introduces a level up system for the weapons, which could be considered a bad thing since you have to grind to level the weapons up. I see many people complaining about the weapon upgrade system, so here are my 2 cents on it. It's not bad at all. Since the weapons level up by using them, you level up the weapons you prefer to use while playing the game normally without grinding at all anyway. so it's not a problem at all. Every weapon upgrade you don't get while normally playing the game only serves to make the game easier than it's supposed to be, kind of making Zero more overpowered. So going out of your way to max out all the weapons is completely unnecessary. The biggest change however are the Cyber Elves that are new to this game. Cyber Elves serve to make the game a bit easier for you. You can get them randomly by killing enemies, finding secret ones hidden within the stages and killing bosses. In order to use them, you need to install them onto Zero via the trend servers that are in some mission areas or the resistance base. Their abilities range from giving you health, to saving you from falling down pits, reducing bosses' health and other various stuff. There are also 4 Cyber Elves in this game that serve as sub-tanks for Zero, and there is no other way to get them. While being a neat addition to the game for newer players who find the game a little bit too hard, I never find myself using any Cyber Elves but the ones that heal you. I don't really like my games too easy. I almost forgot to mention that this game is no piece of cake to beat. It's really hard. Way harder than any of the X games. Well, maybe not X6, but X6 is an unfair piece of shit anyway, so that doesn't count. To end the gameplay segment, I want to talk about the ranking system. Killing a certain amount of enemies in a stage, not dying, not using Cyber Elves, being fast and stuff like that gives you ranking points. Getting a high rank in this game, however, is not really worth it since you only gain access to a room behind CL which gives you Cyber Elves. So don't bother doing a perfect run of the game just for the ranks. It's really frustrating getting an A and S sometimes, wouldn't recommend it. At least not for the first playthrough. So, the music. Mega Man is pretty well known for its music, so how does this game fare? Well, some tracks are really good. Most of them are pretty bland though, to be honest. Compared to a soundtrack like Mega Man X, it doesn't really hold up that well. That changes with the later games in the series. This one, however, is not the greatest, but here are some of my favorites. I'm so happy to say that the stages are amazing when it comes to level design. Since Zero is a lot faster than in the other games, the stages layout changed accordingly to fit the speed, which means that you can perfectly dash through the whole game without taking any damage at all if you're really good. There are no cheap deaths or anything like that, it's balanced really well. Some stages do have a big number of insta-kill spikes, however since Zero controls you fluently and fast, dying because of spikes never feels like it's the game's fault. They're just another obstacle you have to overcome by precision platforming, rather than being a device to create fake difficulty like X6 does. However, one complaint I do have about the stages is that most of them feel very similar in design. Most of the time you are in some robotic looking factory or stuff like that, which is not a bad thing per se, but it leads to the stages feeling kind of samey. I have to applaud them for mixing things up though. This game is mission based. That means that it's entirely possible to go back to a stage just with a different mission, which sounds bad, but it's executed really well. For example, a beginning mission is that you have to go through the desert to find a resistance soldier and bring him back to the base, and it's the worst mission in the game. Then you later return to that stage thinking, oh no, not this shit again. But bam, you destroy a certain enemy and an entirely different pathway opens up to you, leading to an underground prison. This is fucking awesome level design and spices things up really well. So to sum this segment up, the stages are perfectly designed for zero speed and agility and feel great to run through. However, many areas feel very similar, which is not a big problem, but I can see people complaining about it. So for this segment I'll be listing off all the bosses in the game and say what I think about them. Aztec Falcon. He's the first boss in the game and he is hard as fuck, especially for a newcomer. First off, he has a time limit. Secondly, he shoots electric arrows which are not that hard to dodge, but they stay for like a second on the walls or ground they touch, which leads to unnecessary damage. And lastly, he's very big and the arena is small, which leads to you getting hit by his sheer size while trying to dodge him. When you get the hang of it, he is a fun boss, but way too hard for the beginning. Train Engine Core. Easy. Shoots flames which are easy to avoid and is stationary. The only thing that could probably kill you is the insta-kill spikes at the top of the screen, since you can manipulate your footing to ram into the ceiling, but a few well-timed dashes to do the trick. Should have been the first boss. Maha Ganesharif. Not really hard, but so much fun to fight. His rolling and jumping attacks keep you on your toes and teach to time your jumps and dashes correctly. Love this boss. Hydra Mechanaloid. Very easy if you just stay on his left side whenever he attacks. It's a fun concept though, since he uses his multiple elemental arms to attack you with various elemental attacks. Nothing too special though. Anubis Necromancer III. Also a really cool boss. He summons mummies to help him and sand pillars to crush you, on which you have to wall jump to get out of. Blizzak Stakrov. Way too easy with the flame chip. Seriously, as soon as you hit him once with it, he's pretty much done. Hapuya. Not hard at all, but really fun to fight. I absolutely love the dynamic in this battle. I was always a fan of the fights that put you up against enemies with similar skills. Great fights don't all have to be hard, right? Fafnir. A lot harder than Hapuya and way harder to predict. This fight really keeps you on your toes and is great fun. Really hard if you don't use the thunder chip. Phantom. Probably my favorite fight in the game. He's fast, has some really cool attacks and I just love ninjas, can't judge me for that. Learning how to dodge all of his attacks is so much fun. Leviathan. Spark Mandrill Syndrome. Fighter with a flame chip, battle is done. If you don't though, you'll have a pretty challenging fight with great mobility since you're underwater. Great battle. Hanu Machine. This fucking monkey can be so annoying. It only depends on one thing. How many monkeys does he spit out? That's pretty much the main aspect of his difficulty. If he doesn't immediately shit out 20 million monkeys, the fight is fairly easy and fun with the thunder chip. But if you happen to be unlucky and he instantly calls the monkeys, say goodbye to a good chunk of your health, since he will do his attacks like normally, while his mini monkeys are going after you. If that doesn't happen though, the fight is fun. Herculius and Cortis. I don't know how to say his name. Not really that big of a challenge. He will probably hit you with his mini busters a few times, but that's about it. Pretty underwhelming for an endgame boss to be honest. The Rainbow Devil. Remember the Yellow Devil from Mega Man? Well, he's back, but he's not as nearly as obnoxious and tedious, and dare I say it, this time he's actually fun to fight. He's very hard, but since he's pretty fast paced, I don't mind that at all. Great boss fight. So as you can see, I enjoyed the majority of the boss fights, and I even want to say that this set of boss fights exceeds any set of bosses that the X series ever delivered, and I honestly stand by that statement. These bosses are so memorable and fun to fight, I never had that with any of the X series boss fights. So congratulations to this game. Now let's go to the final segment. So as we've come to expect, the final stage is a boss rush stage. But instead of having 8 bosses to fight in one room, you have 2 sets of 4 boss fights with a little stage in between them, which is cool. What I also really like is that the first 4 bosses you fight are the Guardians and Furias, and then the second set of bosses is the Guardians themselves. Nice little touch. So after the boss rush you reach the final boss himself, Copy X. This fight has two phases, with the first fight being fairly easy. Copy X seems to use powers from a Mega Man X game, don't know which one though. Even though the fight is easy, it's pretty fun since it's very fast paced. His final form though... This is a shit boss fight. He has 3 moves, that's it. And the most annoying part is that they're all cheap. So you have these 2 little walls flying next to him, which you have to wall jump on to damage his head, since there's no other way to reach it. However, one of his attacks sends rings flying down that capture and immobilize you. That wouldn't be that bad if they wouldn't fucking track your movement. If you're on a wall about to attack X, this fucking ring comes flying down, immobilizes you and sends you into a death pit. And you can't do shit about it. Great, isn't it? His second attack is him shooting little lasers out of his hands which fly completely randomly. So most of the time when you are once again on a wall about to attack him, you don't have any time to react to it, thus taking damage and in the worst case scenario falling off the wall and dying because of the pit. His last attack is him setting the ground on fire. Doesn't sound that bad, does it? I mean, you have the walls to jump onto, right? Technically, yes, but the walls move up and down so you can't always reach them. And if you're really unlucky, he does the flame attack from the wrong direction so you can't even change the side you want to go to. The shittiest thing to happen though is when he does his fire attack and you jump onto a wall only to hit the spike at the bottom of it and die. Awesome! Enough ranting. This fight is the only one in this game I despise, which is sad since the final boss is the thing gamers keep in their mind most of the time. So, does this game hold up to the X series? Yeah, I think it's even better than the X series, and the Zero games become even better. I think that anyone who likes Mega Man should pick this game up. Well, not physically, since the games are way too expensive right now. I'd suggest you at least go emulate it. It's an amazing game and deserves way more attention than it gets. The third installment is one of my favorite games of all time, but we'll talk about that one after we cover the second one, which will be next week. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It really took a long time to make this, so a like would be appreciated if you indeed liked it. Criticism is also welcome as long as it stays constructive. So see you all next time, have a nice day, bye.